The stars looked different from the bridge of the USS Triton. Jack Miller stood tall, his commander's uniform crisp despite the 36 hours he'd been awake. This was humanity's big moment, their first official meeting with the Galactic. "Conclave, status report," Jack said to his communications officer. Susan Wells looked up from her console. "Sir, we're receiving docking instructions from the Conclave station. They sound impatient." Jack nodded. He had expected this. Earth was the new kid on the block, barely able to reach the stars compared to races that had been traveling between them for thousands of years. In the corner of the bridge stood Lieutenant Alan Hayes. Unlike the others who couldn't hide their excitement, Hayes remained perfectly still, his face giving away nothing. The Navy SEAL had been added to the mission at the last minute, just in case. Hayes had said maybe 10 words since coming aboard, but Jack felt better having him there. The massive space station grew larger in the view screen. It was beautiful in a strange way, a mix of technologies from a dozen alien species. The USS Triton, Earth's pride and joy, would look like a child's toy next to the warships docked there. "We have clearance to dock at Bay 94, Susan announced. "They've sent a guide to help us because they think we might crash into something." Several crew members frowned at the implied insult, but Jack kept his cool. "Thank them for their consideration, Officer Wells." The docking went smoothly despite the aliens' low expectations. As the airlock sealed, Jack addressed the diplomatic team. "Remember, we represent all of Earth today. Stay calm, stay professional." Hayes checked his sidearm one last time before covering it with his dress uniform jacket. Jack pretended not to notice. The Conclave greeting party waited in the docking bay. 5 different species stood in formation, their body shapes ranging from nearly human to utterly alien. The central figure stepped forward, a tall, muscular being with dark red skin and ridge-like features. Ceremonial armor covered its body, and its yellow eyes studied the humans with open disdain. "I am Captain Krastar of the Vraxian Honor Guard," it said in surprisingly good English. "You are permitted to follow me to the Conclave chamber." Jack stepped forward and offered the greeting they had practiced. "Commander Jack Miller of Earth. We come in peace and friendship to join the galactic community." Krastar made a sound. That might have been a laugh. Peace and friendship. How typical of a species that has yet to face real war. "Come." The human delegation followed their guide through massive corridors. Aliens of all descriptions moved about their business. Many, stopping to stare at the newcomers. Some pointed, others laughed. "They act like they've never seen humans before," whispered Susan. "They haven't," Jack replied quietly. The observation teams that visited Earth were disguised. They entered an enormous circular chamber where hundreds of alien representatives sat in tiered seating. The humans were led to a small platform in the center, exposed on all sides. A floating orb-like creature drifted down from the highest tier. "The Conclave recognizes Earth's representatives," it announced in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "After much debate, we have decided to allow your species the opportunity to join our alliance as a probationary member." Jack stepped forward. "We are honored." "You should be," interrupted a voice from the Vraxian section. Krastar had taken his place among his people. "Your world was nearly passed over entirely. Some of us still question the decision." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, the orb being pulsed with light. Captain Krastar speaks out, of turn, but he is not alone in his concern. "Humanity's technology is primitive, and your species' history is troublingly violent." "With respect," Jack said, "if violence disqualifies a species, I wonder why the Vraxians are here. Our research suggests they've conquered 3 worlds in the last century." The chamber erupted in noise. The Vraxian delegation rose to their feet, with Krastar looking ready to leap down to the platform. "The difference," Krastar growled when the noise subsided, "is that we are good at war. Humans are merely enthusiastic amateurs who would break like twigs against any real military force in this galaxy." Throughout the exchange, Lieutenant Hayes had not moved or changed his expression, but Jack noticed his eyes were constantly scanning, counting exits, noting guard positions, assessing threats. The orb being expanded slightly, Perhaps a demonstration would be educational. Captain Krastar, would your people be willing to share your military expertise with our new members? The Vraxian captain's mouth stretched in what might have been a smile. It would be our pleasure. We could start with basic combat training suitable for children. More laughter filled the chamber. The orb turned toward Jack. Commander Miller, would Earth be willing to participate in a military exchange program? It would give your forces valuable experience. Before Jack could answer, another alien spoke up. A tall, willowy being with 4 arms. If we are to judge their worthiness through combat skills, should we not see their best warriors? I have studied Earth transmissions. They have elite units they are quite proud of. Krasitar scoffed. Proud of what? Fighting other humans? Impressive. Jack kept his diplomatic smile. We would be happy to participate in an exchange. And yes, we do have specialized combat units we could include. For the first time, Hayes shifted slightly, drawing Krasitar's attention. The Vraxian captain stared at the quiet human, perhaps sensing something the others missed. This one, Krasitar said, pointing at Hayes. He carries himself differently. What is your function, human? Hayes spoke for the first time since boarding the station. Lieutenant Alan Hayes, United States Navy SEALs. SEALs? The word seemed to confuse the translation system. Sea, air, land. Hayes explained simply. We operate in all environments. Krasitar laughed loudly. All environments on your tiny planet, perhaps. The galaxy holds conditions your soft bodies could never survive. Hayes said nothing, his face unreadable. The conclave meeting continued for hours. The terms of Earth's probationary status were laid out. Restricted access to technology, limited trading rights, and mandatory participation in cultural and military exchange programs. As they finally returned to their ship, Susan spoke what everyone was thinking. They're treating us like children. Jack nodded tiredly. Maybe we are, compared to them. But children grow up. He turned to Hayes, who was already removing his formal jacket. Lieutenant, I have a feeling you'll be seeing more of Captain Krastar soon. Hayes checked his weapon before securing it. Yes, sir. Any thoughts on our new allies? Jack asked. Hayes looked back toward the station for a moment. They've forgotten something important, sir. What's that? On Earth, predators that get too confident become prey. Hayes said this quietly, almost to himself, then walked away down the corridor. Jack watched him go, feeling both concern and comfort from the SEAL's words. The next few months would certainly be interesting. 3 months after the first meeting with the conclave, Earth prepared to host the alien military delegations. A remote training facility in Montana had been converted for the exchange program. Mountains, forests, lakes, and specially built training grounds spread across thousands of acres. Lieutenant Alan Hayes stood at the landing pad as 5 ships descended from the clouds. He wore standard Navy workout clothes. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed elite warrior. That was fine with him. Let them underestimate. General Frank Porter stood beside him, fidgeting with his uniform. Remember, Lieutenant, this is as much diplomacy as it is training. Try not to hurt their feelings, or whatever aliens have instead of feelings. Hayes nodded once. Yes, sir. The ships landed one by one. The Vraxian vessel came down last, larger and more intimidating than the others. Its hull bore marks that Hayes recognized as battle damage, worn proudly, not repaired. The alien delegations emerged. Each species had sent 5 representatives. The Talons came first, slim, pale beings with large eyes who moved with unsettling grace. Next came the Zistrians, whose bodies were partly mechanical, with visible tech implanted in their blue skin. The third and fourth groups were less humanoid, one resembling upright lizards, another looking almost like walking plants. Finally, the Vraxians appeared. All 5 were tall, muscular, and moved with a predator's confidence. Captain Krasitar led them, his yellow eyes finding Hayes immediately in the receiving line. After formal greetings, General Porter began the tour. We've prepared areas that showcase different Earth environments and combat situations. Our goal is mutual learning and— "Where are your advanced training simulators?" interrupted a Zistrian, metal components gleaming on his face. Porter hesitated. "We use live fire exercises and physical environments for most training." The aliens exchanged looks. One of the plant-like beings made a sound like rustling leaves that the translators didn't catch. Several laughed. "Primitive, as expected," Krazitar said, "but we are here to teach, not mock. Show us your best facilities and we will try to work with what you have." Hayes remained silent as Porter led them through the base, showing training rooms, obstacle courses, and equipment. With each stop, the aliens became more openly dismissive. "You train underwater? Why not use ships?" asked one of the lizard beings, when shown the pool facility. "These projectile weapons require physical ammunition," a Talon observed, examining an assault rifle. "How inefficient." After the tour, Porter gathered everyone in the briefing room. "Tomorrow, we begin with physical assessments. Each species will demonstrate their capabilities, then we'll form mixed teams for exercises." That evening, Hayes sat alone in the mess hall, eating quietly when Krazitar approached. The Vraxian captain set down his tray, filled with twice the war, food of a human portion, and sat across from Hayes. "You were at the conclave meeting," Krazitar said. "The quiet one. The seal." Hayes nodded, continuing to eat. "Your General Porter talks too much, you say little. This suggests you might actually be a warrior rather than a politician in uniform." Krazitar leaned forward. "What makes these seals special among your kind?" Hayes considered the question. "We adapt, we overcome, we never quit." Krazitar waited for more, then laughed when nothing came. "That's it? That is your great philosophy? Vraxian children learn more complex battle doctrine while still in their growth pods." Hayes shrugged. "Works for us." The next morning, all delegations gathered at the central field. Each species would demonstrate their combat abilities. The Talons went first, showing remarkable speed and what appeared to be limited telepathy, anticipating movements before they happened. The Zistrians demonstrated integrated weapons systems in their bodies. The plant beings could rapidly extend vine-like limbs as weapons, while the lizard species had natural armor and strength. Finally, the Vraxians performed. They were impressive, lifting weights that would crush humans, moving with deadly precision, and displaying fighting techniques. From their homeworld, when Krazitar easily broke through a concrete block with a single strike, he looked directly at Hayes. "Your turn, Seal," he called out. Hayes stepped forward into the demonstration area. He wore regular combat fatigues, no special armor or gear. Several aliens murmured, clearly expecting some hidden technology or dramatic display. Instead, Hayes ran through a standard SEAL physical routine: pull-ups, swimming, running, marksmanship. His performance was excellent by human standards, but unimpressive to beings with natural advantages. "Is that all?" asked one of the Zistrians when Hayes finished. Hayes nodded. Krazitar laughed. "Where is your special power, human? Your genetic enhancement? Your technological advantage?" "Don't have one," Hayes replied. The aliens seemed genuinely confused. A Talon approached General Porter. "We were told these SEALs were your elite warriors. Why show us this ordinary human?" Porter looked uncomfortable. "Lieutenant Hayes is one of our best. SEALs excel through training and adaptability, not enhancements." This caused even more confusion among the visitors. The concept of elite warriors without genetic or technological advantages made no sense to them. The next phase of training began the following day, a series of exercises in different environments. First was desert training in a simulated environment. The aliens struggled with the heat and sand, especially the plant beings. Hayes moved efficiently, conserving water and energy while completing objectives. The Vraxians performed well but used brute strength where subtlety would have worked better. Next came mountain training. Here, the difference became more noticeable. The aliens, used to controlled environments and technological assistance, found the changing conditions frustrating. When a sudden storm hit during a climbing exercise, several became genuinely distressed. Hayes calmly adapted, showing them techniques for shelter and navigation. He moved across difficult terrain with practiced ease. For the first time, the aliens watched him with something other than dismissal. On the 5th day, underwater training began. Here, Hayes truly excelled. The Vraxians, despite their strength, were poor swimmers. Their dense muscle mass made floating difficult. The Telans avoided water entirely, claiming it interfered with their sensory abilities. Hayes moved through the water like he was born to it, completing the underwater obstacle course in record time. When he helped a struggling Vraxian through a flooded tunnel, the alien's attitude shifted from contempt to confusion. That evening, Krasitar found Hayes cleaning his gear. The Vraxian watched silently for a moment. "You knew we would struggle in water," Krasitar said finally. Hayes nodded. "Different environments favor different adaptations. Our training facilities simulate ideal combat conditions," Krasitar admitted. "We rarely practice in inconvenient settings." Hayes continued working on his equipment. "Earth doesn't have ideal conditions. We train in the worst." For the first time, Krasitar seemed to really look at Hayes, not as an inferior being, but as something he didn't quite understand. "Tomorrow is the jungle course," Hayes said. "You might want to prepare for insects, lots of them." Krasitar made a rumbling noise that might have been concern. "These exercises are not what we expected." "War rarely is," Hayes replied, reassembling his rifle with practiced movements. As Krasitar walked away, he glanced back at the human. Something was changing in how he viewed these Earth warriors. They lacked the natural advantages his people valued. Yet this quiet human moved through challenges with a confidence that was beginning to seem less like ignorance and more like something else entirely. 2 weeks into the exchange program, something unexpected happened. The aliens began to struggle less in Earth's environments. They watched Hayes and the other human soldiers closely, copying their techniques. The mockery had grown quieter, replaced by reluctant concentration. The jungle training had been particularly effective at changing attitudes. The Vraxians discovered that their natural armor trapped heat uncomfortably in the humid air. The Talans found their sensory abilities overwhelmed by the riot of life forms. Even the plant-like beings struggled, confused by Earth's vegetation that was nothing like their homeworlds. Hayes led a mixed team through the jungle course, showing them how to move silently, find water, and avoid natural hazards. He said little, but when he did speak, even Krasitar listened carefully. After completing a particularly difficult river crossing, Krasitar approached Hayes as they set up camp for the night. "Your world is challenging," the Vraxian admitted. "On my planet, conditions are stable, predictable." Hayes nodded. "Earth is never the same 2 days in a row. We adapt or we die. Is that why your special forces train in all these conditions, because your planet forces you to?" "Partly," Hayes said. "But mostly because humans fight in all these places. We go where we need to go." Krasitar seemed to consider this. "Vraxians choose battlefields that favor our strengths. We would not fight in water or extreme environments if we could avoid it." "That's the difference," Hayes replied. "Seals don't get to choose. We take the mission, whatever it is, wherever it is." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent call for all team leaders. Hayes and Krasitar made their way back to the command center, where General Porter waited with a grim expression. "We've received an emergency transmission from the Conclave," Porter explained when everyone had gathered. "A scientific outpost in the Proxima system has gone silent after reporting attacks. A holographic display showed the location, a research station on a moon orbiting a gas giant. The images from the last transmission showed damage to the facility's outer structures. The attackers are believed to be Krell," Porter continued. "Hostile beings from outside Conclave space." The aliens reacted with obvious concern. The Zistrian representative spoke up. "The Krell are extremely dangerous. They evolved in a high-gravity, high-radiation environment. They are difficult to kill. The nearest Conclave military vessel is 4 days away," Porter said. But our ship, the USS Triton, can be there in less than 2 with the faster-than-light drive we've been testing. The room fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. The only available response force was the mixed team of humans and aliens currently on Earth. This is a conclave matter, Krastar said firmly. My team will lead the rescue operation. Porter looked at Hayes, who remained expressionless. We leave in 3 hours, Porter decided. Each species will select 2 representatives for the mission. Lieutenant Hayes will represent Earth's Special Forces. As they prepared, Hayes noticed that the aliens were packing their most advanced equipment. The Zistrians activated additional implants. The Talons performed some kind of mental preparation, ritual. The Vraxians donned their ceremonial combat armor, which Hayes now understood contained advanced protection systems. In contrast, Hayes packed simply: his standard gear, extra ammunition, medical supplies, and survival equipment. When one of the Talons questioned his minimal preparation, Hayes only said, "Less to fail." The USS Triton departed Earth orbit with its mixed crew. Commander Jack Miller welcomed them aboard, his eyes showing concern when he saw the tension among the alien representatives. "What can you tell us about these Krell?" he asked during the mission briefing. The Zistrian specialist activated a holographic display. They are apex predators, evolved for hunting in extreme conditions. Their home planet has 3 times Earth's gravity and radiation levels that would kill most species. They have enhanced strength, natural armor, and can see in multiple light spectrums. Weaknesses? Hayes asked. The aliens looked at each other uncomfortably. They have few, Krastar admitted. Which is why a quick strike is our best option. We go in with superior numbers and firepower, eliminate the threat, and extract any survivors. Hayes studied the station schematics. We don't know how many Krell are there or where the survivors might be. A direct assault could put the scientists at risk. Krastar made a dismissive gesture. The Vraxian approach has worked for centuries. We will lead the primary team. You can support from the ship. Hayes said nothing more but continued studying the layout of the research station, memorizing every corridor and access point. As they approached the Proxima system, the tension on the ship grew. Scans of the moon showed no response from the station's communication systems, but life signs were detected inside the damaged structure. The away team prepared in the shuttle bay. Krastar's strike force looked formidable in their advanced armor, carrying weapons that made Earth's firearms look like toys. The other alien specialists checked their equipment one last time. Hayes stood to the side, checking his own gear methodically. He had added a rebreather and extra water to his pack after seeing the moon's thin atmosphere and high temperatures in the briefing. Just before boarding the shuttle, Krastar approached him. You seem concerned, Seal. Hayes looked at him directly. This plan has too many assumptions. We don't know enough. Sometimes action must come before perfect information, Krastar replied. We cannot wait while our people might be dying. Rushing in will get more people killed, Hayes said quietly. This is why humans are still learning to fight beyond their world, Krastar said, his tone almost sympathetic. You overthink. In battle, decisiveness is strength. The shuttle departed with Krastar's team while Hayes watched from the transport bay. Commander Miller stood beside him. You don't agree with their approach, Miller observed. No, sir. Neither. Do I, Miller admitted. But this is their operation. 3 hours later, everything went wrong. The communications from the strike team became erratic, then stopped completely. The last transmission from Krastar reported that they were under attack from multiple directions and falling back to the lower levels of the facility. In the command center, Miller and his officers tried desperately to re-establish contact. The ship's sensors showed energy fluctuations throughout the station, suggesting intense combat. We need to mount a rescue operation, Miller said finally. But the shuttle's damaged and we can't get close enough with the ship due to the radiation from the gas giant. Hayes stepped forward. I'll go in. Everyone turned to look at him. Alone? Asked one of the Talon representatives who had remained. On the ship. Against enemies that overwhelmed our best warriors? Hayes was already heading toward the equipment bay. Someone has to. Miller followed him. What's your plan, Lieutenant? Drop me 2 miles out. I'll approach on foot, find our people, and get them out. The moon's surface is exposed to extreme radiation during the day cycle, Miller warned. That's why they had to wait for the shuttle landing zone to rotate into the night side. Then I'll move during the approaching night cycle and use the radiation storms as cover, Hayes replied, selecting additional radiation protection gear. The aliens watched in disbelief as Hayes prepared. The Zistrian specialist approached him. Your equipment is insufficient for these conditions, he stated. Our team had the most advanced protection available, and they are still in danger. Hayes continued his preparations. Advanced technology is good until it fails. Then you need to know how to work without it. As Hayes finished gearing up, Miller asked one final time, Are you sure about this? Hayes checked his weapon and nodded. This is what SEALs do, sir. The difficult missions, the ones no one else can handle. Miller gave him a grim smile. Good hunting, Lieutenant. The small drop pod ejected from the USS Triton as the moon began its rotation into night. Through the observation window, the aliens watched the tiny figure of Hayes emerge onto the barren surface, a single human against an alien world. The surface of the moon was like nothing Hayes had ever experienced, yet somehow familiar. The gravity was stronger than Earth's, making each step require more effort. The landscape was barren rock broken by deep crevices. Above, the massive gas giant filled half the sky, its swirling storms casting an eerie light. Hayes moved carefully, conserving energy. His helmet display showed radiation levels rising as the gas giant's magnetosphere fluctuated. These radiation storms had grounded the ship and would hide his approach from sensors. Back on the USS Triton, the remaining aliens watched through Hayes' helmet camera. They gathered around the screens, expressions showing disbelief as the lone human traversed the dangerous terrain. He moves well for a species not adapted to high gravity, observed one of the Zistrians, but the station is still over a mile away through that broken ground. Miller stood behind them. Lieutenant Hayes once walked 30 miles through a desert, carrying a wounded comrade. This is what SEALs are trained for. As Hayes approached the research station, he avoided the main entrance where Krasatar's team had gone in. Instead, he studied the facility's exterior, noting the damage patterns and searching for alternative access points. He found what he needed, a maintenance hatch near a damaged section. Using his multi-tool, Hayes bypassed the lock system and slipped inside. The station's interior was dark, emergency lighting casting red shadows across the corridors. Hayes moved silently, his weapon ready but not firing unnecessarily. The first thing he noticed was the temperature, much hotter than humans would find comfortable. Perfect for heat-loving Krell. Following the station schematics he had memorized, Hayes made his way toward the central labs where life signs had been strongest. He encountered his first Krell near a junction. The alien was even more intimidating in person than in the briefings. Standing 7 feet tall with a heavily muscled body covered in natural armor plates, it looked like it could tear a human apart with ease. Its 4 eyes scanned constantly, and what appeared to be thermal sensors lined its jaw. Hayes remained perfectly still in the shadows. The Krell passed within a few feet of him without noticing. Once it moved on, Hayes continued his careful advance. On the Triton, the aliens watching were silent with surprise. The Krell should have detected his heat signature, said the Talon. How did it not see him? Miller smiled slightly. SEALs can control their breathing, heart rate, even their body temperature to some degree. Lieutenant Hayes can make himself nearly invisible to thermal sensors when he needs to. Hayes reached a sealed door marked as Laboratory 3. Inside, his scanner detected multiple life signs. Using the override codes from the briefing, he opened the door just enough to slip inside. The room contained 5 conclave scientists, 2 plant beings, 2 Tylons, and a Zistrian. They had barricaded themselves inside when the attack began. A human? One of the Talons whispered in surprise. Where is the rescue team? I am the rescue team, Hayes replied quietly. Status report. The Zistrian scientist spoke up. The Krell, attacked without warning. They appear to be after our research on transdimensional energy sources. The rescue team made contact briefly but were driven back by superior numbers. Are they alive? Hayes asked. Last we knew, they retreated to the lower levels. The Krell have been hunting them through the maintenance tunnels. Hayes nodded. I'll find them. You five stay here and prepare to move on my signal. Before leaving, Hayes gave them extra water and emergency rations from his pack. The scientists looked at the simple supplies with confusion. These are primitive survival materials, one said. They work, Hayes replied, even when technology fails. Moving deeper into the station, Hayes encountered more signs of battle, scorched walls, damaged equipment, and occasionally dark fluid that might have been Krell blood. He followed these signs toward the lower levels. In a large storage area, he finally found evidence of Krastar's team, a discarded piece of Vraxian armor damaged beyond use. Hayes picked up the pace, still moving carefully but with increased urgency. The maintenance tunnels were narrow, hot, and filled with pipes and conduits, perfect for an ambush. Hayes proceeded inch by inch, all senses alert. He found one of them, Zistrian warriors first, injured but alive, hiding in a small alcove. Most of the aliens' technological implants had failed in the intense radiation. Human, the Zistrian whispered in disbelief. How did you get past the Krell? Quietly, Hayes answered, checking the aliens' wounds. Where are the others? Scattered. Our communications failed. The Krell disabled our technology somehow, without our advantages. Hayes applied a field dressing to the worst of the Zistrians' injuries. Can you move? Yes, but without my systems I am vulnerable. Join me. We'll find the others together. The Zistrian seemed uncertain. Without my combat systems, I cannot fight effectively. Then don't fight, Hayes said. Survive. Move quietly. Follow my lead. Together they moved deeper into the tunnels. Hayes taught the alien how to step silently, how to use shadows for concealment, how to control breathing to remain undetected. Techniques humans had perfected over thousands of years of hunting and being hunted. They found 2 more survivors, a Talon and one of the lizard beings, both hiding, both with malfunctioning equipment. Hayes gathered them to him, a small group, growing as they searched. Krastar? Hayes asked them. Still alive last we saw, the lizard being replied, but cornered in the lower power distribution center with the remaining Vraxian. As they approached the power center, they encountered more Krell. Hayes held up his hand, signaling the others to remain still. 3 Krell warriors were patrolling the corridor ahead, blocking their path. On the Triton, the alien observers watched tensely. They're trapped, one said. Even your seal cannot defeat 3 Krell in direct combat. Miller remained calm. Watch and learn. Seals don't fight fair. They fight to win. Instead of attacking, Hayes retrieved several small devices from his pack. He carefully placed one near a junction box, another near a steam pipe, and a third near an electrical panel. Cover your ears, he whispered to his group. The first device detonated, causing a cascade of sparks from the electrical panel. As the Krell turned toward the distraction, the second device ruptured the steam pipe, filling the corridor with blinding vapor. The third explosion came seconds later from behind the Krell, disorienting them completely. In the confusion, Hayes led his group past the Krell without firing a shot. They reached the power distribution center and found Krastar and his remaining Vraxian warrior barricaded inside. Both were wounded, their advanced armor damaged beyond repair. When Hayes entered, Krastar looked up in genuine shock. Hayes? How are you here? Came to get you out? Hayes replied simply, already checking. Their injuries. Krastar shook his head in disbelief. Our weapons failed. Our armor systems malfunctioned in the radiation. Without our technology. Technology is a tool, not a warrior. Hayes said, helping the Vraxian to his feet. We need to move. I found a way out, but we have to go now. My Krell have us surrounded, Krastar argued. We cannot fight through them. We're not going to fight them, Hayes said. We're going to avoid them. Krastar looked confused. Avoid? That is not the Vraxian way. Today you try the human way, Hayes replied, unless you prefer to stay here and die. For the first time, Krastar deferred to the human without argument. Lead seal, we will follow. Hayes outlined his plan, a path back through the maintenance tunnels using distractions and stealth rather than direct confrontation. The aliens listened carefully, now respecting his expertise in a way they never had during training. As they prepared to move out, Krastar watched Hayes reorganize his small pack of supplies. One question, human, the Vraxian said quietly. When your technology failed in this environment just like ours, how did you continue? Hayes looked at him steadily. I expected it to fail, so I planned for that from the beginning. Understanding dawned in the Vraxian's yellow eyes. Perhaps this, finally, was the true lesson Earth's special forces had to teach the galaxy. Getting out of the research station proved harder than getting in. Hayes led the growing group, now including Krastar, 3 other Vraxians, a Tylon, 2 of the lizard beings, and a Zistrian, through the maintenance tunnels. Each alien followed, his instructions exactly, no longer questioning his methods. The scientists are waiting in Laboratory 3, Hayes explained as they moved. We'll collect them, then proceed to the emergency landing pad on the east side. The Triton cannot approach with the radiation storms, Krastar pointed out. Commander Miller will send the shuttle during the next break in the storm. We need to be ready. The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. How do you know there will be a break in the storm? I studied the moon's weather patterns before I dropped, Hayes explained. The storms follow a cycle. We have 22 minutes to reach the pad when the next window opens. They moved silently through the station, avoiding Krell patrols using Hayes's techniques. When direct confrontation couldn't be avoided, Hayes used the environment itself as a weapon, causing equipment failures, creating distractions, and setting traps rather than engaging in firefights. You fight. Strangely, observed one of the Vraxians after Hayes used the station's own fire suppression system to incapacitate 3 Krell without firing a shot. SEALs use what's available, Hayes replied. The mission is what matters, not how you look doing it. They reached Laboratory 3 and collected the scientists. The group now numbered 17, far more than Hayes had planned for. He adapted quickly, organizing them into smaller teams, each led by someone who had already learned his movement techniques. Stay close, move only when I signal, and remain silent, Hayes instructed. We're almost there. The route to the landing pad took them through the station's main atrium, a large open space that would leave them exposed. Hayes studied the area carefully from a concealed position. Too many Krell, Krastar whispered. At least a dozen. We cannot fight through them. We're not going to, Hayes replied. We're going to use their hunting instincts against them. Hayes divided their supplies among the group. He took a small device from his pack and programmed it quickly. This will overload the station's main power core in sequence, he explained. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to create multiple failures throughout the facility. When systems start failing, the Krell will investigate. They're curious by nature, according to your briefings. The aliens looked impressed by his understanding of their enemy. Hayes continued. We'll move during the confusion. Stay low, stay together, and no matter what happens, keep moving toward the landing pad. Hayes activated the device. Seconds later, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Lights flickered and died in different sections. The Krell in the atrium reacted immediately, several moving to check various systems. Now, Hayes signaled, leading the first group along the wall toward the far corridor. They were halfway across, when one of the scientists stumbled, making a noise that drew attention. 3 Krell turned, spotting the escaping group. Keep moving, Hayes ordered the others. He turned to face the approaching Krell alone. On the USS Triton, the crew watched through Hayes's helmet camera as he prepared to face enemies that had overwhelmed an entire team of advanced alien warriors. He cannot defeat 3 Krell in combat, one of the Talons said anxiously. Miller remained calm. Watch. Instead of attacking directly, Hayes retreated strategically, leading the Krell away from the escaping group. He used the station's architecture for cover, firing precisely at environmental controls rather than at the aliens themselves. A coolant pipe burst, spraying the area with freezing liquid that slowed the cold-blooded Krell. While they recovered, Hayes circled back, rejoining the main group as they reached the corridor leading to the landing pad. "Impressive," Krazitar acknowledged as Hayes caught up. "You turned their environment against them." "Basic SEAL tactic," Hayes replied, checking the time. "We have 9 minutes until the radiation window opens. Let's move." They reached the landing pad access tunnel and found it blocked. A security door had sealed during the power fluctuations. The Zistrian tried to bypass it with his remaining functional technology but failed. "The system is in lockdown," he reported. "We cannot override it." Hayes examined the door calmly. "Then we go around it." He pointed to a maintenance shaft above them. "That runs parallel to this corridor and exits near the landing pad." The shaft was narrow, uncomfortably so for the larger aliens. Krazitar looked at it doubtfully. "Some of us will not fit." "You will if you remove your armor," Hayes replied. The Vraxians hesitated. Their armor was part of their identity as warriors. "Your armor is damaged beyond usefulness," Hayes said simply. "Let it go." After a moment, Krazitar began removing his ceremonial battle armor. The other Vraxians followed his example. Without it, they were able to squeeze into the shaft. The group crawled through the tight space following Hayes. They emerged onto the landing pad just as the radiation levels began to drop. The gas giant storms visibly calmed above them. Hayes activated his emergency beacon. Almost immediately they received a response from the Triton. The shuttle was already launching. As they waited, a final group of Krell burst onto the pad. There was nowhere to hide this time. "Protect the scientists," Hayes ordered, stepping forward with Krazitar and the other warriors. What followed was unlike any battle the aliens had experienced. The humans and aliens fought together, each using their unique abilities. Hayes moved, with a fluid efficiency, never wasting energy, using the Krell's greater strength against them with techniques the aliens had never seen. When one Krell had Hayes cornered, Krazitar intervened, grabbing the creature and throwing it aside. Hayes nodded in thanks, then pulled Krazitar down as another Krell fired a weapon over their heads. The shuttle appeared in the sky above them, descending rapidly. As it touched down, Hayes and Krazitar covered the scientists' retreat, fighting, side by side. They were the last two aboard, diving into the shuttle as the doors closed. The craft lifted off immediately, accelerating away from the moon as the radiation storms began to intensify again. Inside the shuttle, the rescued scientists and warriors looked at Hayes with new respect. Many were injured, all were exhausted, but they had survived. Krazitar sat beside Hayes as the shuttle docked with the Triton. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, the Vraxian said, "I was wrong about humans." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Your species lacks our strength, our technology, our natural advantages," Krazitar continued. "Yet you succeeded where we failed. I do not fully understand how." "You relied on advantages that could be taken away," Hayes explained. "SEALs rely on what can't be taken. Training, adaptability, and the will to complete the mission no matter what." 3 days later, the USS Triton arrived back at the Conclave space station. News of the rescue had traveled faster than the ship. Representatives from dozens of species waited to greet them. In the grand chamber, the floating orb being addressed the assembled delegates. "The Conclave recognizes the exceptional service performed by the combined team from Earth and our member worlds," it announced. "This incident has revealed much about our newest allies." Krazitar stepped forward, still showing wounds from the battle. "If I may address the Conclave?" The orb pulsed in assent. "I came to Earth believing I would teach primitive humans about warfare," the Vraxian began. "Instead, I learned that true combat readiness is not about superior technology or natural abilities. The human called Hayes showed us that adaptability, preparation, and the will to never quit are more valuable than any weapon." The chamber was silent as Krazitar continued. "I formally request that the Conclave establish a new training program. led by Earth's Special Forces instructors. I believe all our worlds could benefit from their methods. The proposal caused excited discussion throughout the chamber. Eventually, the orb being expanded, indicating a decision. The conclave agrees. Earth will no longer be considered a probationary member. Instead, we recognize your unique contributions and welcome you as full partners. After the ceremony, Hayes prepared to return to Earth. Krastar found him in the docking bay. You will be leading the new training program? The Vraxian asked. Hayes shook his head. I'm just a SEAL. I go where I'm needed. You have changed how the galaxy sees your kind, Krastar said. No one will mock Earth's warriors again. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. That was never the point, but it's nice to be understood. As the Earth delegation departed, word spread throughout the conclave worlds about the humans and their special forces. New phrases entered alien languages, concepts like adapt and overcome and never quit. And among the Vraxians, a new saying became common when facing difficult challenges: do it like a SEAL. Back on Earth, in the quiet training grounds where it all began, General Porter welcomed Hayes back. The aliens are requesting more exchange programs, Porter informed him, particularly something they're calling SEAL training. Hayes nodded, as he checked his gear, already preparing for his next mission. Anything else, Lieutenant? Porter asked. Hayes thought about the stars, the strange worlds he had seen, and the lessons shared between species who had once mocked each other. Just one thing, sir, he replied. We're going to need bigger training facilities.